right, so a typical foggy day here in San Francisco. I'm hoping the sun is going to come out, but right now it's pretty breezy, pretty chilly, but let me show you what I'm thinking. All right, so here is the scene I'm working with. I'm not sure how I'm going to compose this, but I do want to include the bridge, some of the trees in the foreground, and then the street heading out towards the bay. I'm painting on an 18 by 24 inch panel. Colors I'm going to use today are probably phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, titanium white, and cadmium yellow medium. Sketching in burnt sienna using a worn out number 4 synthetic flat. The bridge is a key feature, so I want to make sure that I get this established first. And there's some trees along the street here. This is leading out towards the Embarcadero. So there'll be water in here, group of buildings over to the right, group of buildings to the left. There's some palm trees in the foreground and a bit of a building here, which will give a little bit of foreground to create some depth. As you guys know, I like to use a large brush. I'm using a number 6 natural bristle flat to put in sort of a mid-tone gray here for the bridge. And I'm not worried about being too careful with these lines. Give a close-up, you can see it's pretty messy. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the negative space in the background, for example the sky and a bit of the water, to carve out the positive shape of the bridge. So for now I just want to get a value established here, and then I'll, like I said, use the sky, and there's distant mountains as well, so I'll be using those to carve out the bridge. Bridges in San Francisco are such a key feature of the landscape here, but they're difficult to paint. Any kind of structure, like a bridge or buildings, are sort of a challenge because they have to be somewhat accurate. All right, I'm stepping back to make sure that I'm not painting the bridge too large. I want to keep it small so that it recedes into the distance. There's a bit of distant shoreline visible here. That's Oakland across the bay, possibly Alameda too. And I've got a dark green mixture here, blocking in some of the trees that line the street. I often start with the trees because they're usually dark in value and they help to anchor the design really early in the process. There are also some trees over here. Putting in the trees also gives me some landmarks to work with. Obviously there's so much information out here. Having the trees to refer to is really helpful. There's some that are sticking up above the top of these buildings. This is down on the Embarcadero. Added a little red to the mixture for this tree trunk here. And even though I'm kind of experimenting with some of these darker details at this point, I still am trying to focus on the overall composition. Okay, putting in some dark shapes to indicate where these buildings are. And I've put a vanishing point right here on the horizon, and I'm angling all of my buildings and the street to this vanishing point. And I established the vanishing point by looking at all the buildings in real life. I noticed the vanishing point is on the distant horizon in the center of the bridge. All right, I've got a grayish blue mixture here, and I'm squinting at the scene. To reduce it to simple shapes, I'm looking for dark patterns, and there's a dark pattern in the buildings right here. There's some dark buildings over here as well. I'm not paying attention to the color at this point, more or less just the value, trying to create an interesting value pattern. On this side we have a pier that's coming out, and there's a building in the foreground here, aiming this building towards the vanishing point. And I'm basically just estimating. It's usually close enough. I do not want to get a straight edge out and start getting too careful. I used to do that in the past, but it ends up taking forever, and it just makes the painting look too stiff, almost like an architectural drawing. This here is like a rooftop deck type of thing. There's a building right here that is light in color, and I like how it makes the tree stand out, but it's not interesting enough, so I think I'm going to add some windows into it so that you'll know that it's a building. Something like that. It really does help to have a vanishing point established, because you can basically just make up a bunch of verticals and horizontals and then other lines that are angled towards that vanishing point. Alright, so stepping back, I think I want it to be darker down here, like this area. So I will change things for compositional purposes. This building down here is actually a lighter value, but I want to change it just because I think it's more interesting to have this sort of dark pattern running through the buildings. I also feel like I need something dark and solid over here. Make this a little darker, and then this side of this building here, make that darker. Something like that. There's a tree over to the right, but I'm going to increase the size of it and bring it all the way up like this. Got a mixture here of titanium white and some cadmium yellow medium, and then I've just picked up some gray from my palette to darken it and dull it just a bit. Once I've got the whole panel covered, then I can start making adjustments and then also adding little bits of suggested detail. I've switched over to a number 8 natural bristle flat just so I can cover the panel more quickly. I'll probably try to use this brush for most of the painting. A large-ish brush like this keeps me from focusing on detail. I can't really paint detail with this brush. I want the detail to be implied. I feel like our imaginations are able to create detail better than I am with a brush. So if you just suggest detail, then the imagination fills in the blanks. Alright, for the water, I've got a grayish blue-green mixture using ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, a bit of gray from my palette, and some titanium white. And there's a bit more of a blue-green color to the water than there is to the sky and distant hills. You can barely see the distant hills because there's so much fog today. I was hoping the sun would come out, but I don't think it's going to happen. That's all right. You never know. Things change here in this area every few minutes, it seems like. Using the negative space of the water to carve out the shoreline, and as I mentioned, bits of the bridge as well. There we go. And for the sky and the surrounding hills, I'm going with a mixture of titanium white and ultramarine blue. I need to eliminate this dark line here that is the distant shoreline. That's not, I don't want something that dark in the distance. I just sketched it in that way because that was what was on my brush at the time. Wind is picking up. It is definitely chilly out here. I have my usual hoodie on, but actually I could use a flannel today. Alright, for this area in here where there are some suspension wires, I'm just going to paint this area a little bit darker Again, I'm not going to paint individual wires because that's just too much detail, and I cannot do it with this brush. If I can't paint it with this brush, I'm not going to paint it. Or I'll figure out another way, like this, where I'm just suggesting by having it slightly darker. Like that. Alright, for the street, I'm using a warm gray mixture. At this point, I've switched over to a natural bristle number 6, and I'm applying thicker strokes, but I'm trying to maintain this value pattern. And my battery is dying, and I'm getting cold out here, so I probably won't film much more of this, but this is the process. I'm just going to start working into these shapes with this brush using thicker paint, and I'm going to try to keep this really loose. I'm feeling like this painting is a bit looser than usual, and I'm kind of enjoying it. Alright, so here's what I finished up with. This painting took about 2.5 hours to complete. I did finish it on site. I decided to leave this painting a little less finished than I usually do, just because there were some things happening that I was really liking in the painting, and I decided I did not want to overwork it. As I mentioned, this painting was mostly painted with a natural bristle number 8, and then I moved down to a number 6. I really like natural bristle flats. They hold a lot of paint, and they're somewhat imprecise, which, as I mentioned, keeps me from getting too careful. And I think that there's a lot of nice accidental effects that are achieved with those brushes. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. It's a Patreon support that helps me keep making these videos, and it's much appreciated, so check it out. Other than that, stay creative. I'll see you guys in the next video.